Okay. Do you guys consider yourselves digital marketing experts?
Not at all.
I oh, yeah. No, not at all.
Yeah, well, I saw you try to slide that in there. Okay. Well, I think a lot of people get intimidated by kind of the whole aspect of digital marketing, especially if you're an operator, property manager, running your own business. And the OTAs are the easiest, fastest way to get great visibility, millions of potential guests. So it's kind of no wonder that your direct bookings kind of get lost in the mix. It doesn't become as much of a priority. But if you want more control over those direct bookings and you don't want to be paying all those commission fees, Atlas by TravelNet might be for you. They're going to set you up with a beautiful mobile friendly website because let's face it, we're all addicted to our phones. So it has to work on your desktop and your phone. Then they're going to set you up with your pay per click campaigns and a fast, secure booking engine that's going to drive all of that guest data into Track or whatever software you're using so you can build this robust database full of guest information and keep that repeat business going. So if you want more control over your brand, schedule a free consultation with the marketing experts at Atlas. You can find that link in our show notes.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning. How we
Good
doing?
morning.
Hello. Good morning.
It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood. How's your guys' weekend?
Pretty nice. Pretty low key.
It's great. We
It's
took Ollie on a Easter egg hunt. So
Oh,
Oh,
okay. Wait. I saw this happening, but Easter is next weekend. Is it now like
yeah.
Halloween where people just like choose a weekend in the vicinity to like do that kind of stuff?
well, I think Halloween has to be a coordinated effort within the neighborhood, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Easter
Oh, I
egg,
guess
you
this
just
was your this
get
you
a
just
bunch of
chose to
kids
do it.
together and you throw some eggs in the field.
Gotcha.
We don't know. We don't have kids, so we're just
Yeah,
The
I don't
asking
know.
Easter
I'm
you.
just
bunny is going to come on Sunday. So
Oh,
that's,
okay.
yeah.
This was like
All
the
right.
precursor. I see.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys pre-game Easter. I like it. I like it. Man, Oliver's living the dream. Living the dream, Oliver.
Something like that.
Pre-gaming. Love it. Well, forgive me if I sound a little sick still. I'm still recovering from post Nashville cold. For all the STR wealth people that attended and also got sick and reached out. I feel you. Get well, recover. But we got a lot to talk about, and this one's going to be a little, as we've been saying in our group chat, a little spicy. I know we got Brandy a little hyped up behind the scenes. Michael, maybe not as much. I'll consider myself like middle ground spice right now. I'm a 2-star versus Brandy's like 3 or 4. Michael, I don't know where you land, but wanted
We'll
to
find
put that
out.
out there
It's
for our
Find out.
audience.
We'll find
Yeah,
out.
we're
it's
gonna
the
find
wild
out.
card.
I might go down to a 1 or a 0 because I can't handle the heat too much. So it's a redhead, in me that can't really do it. But anyways, we've been hearing a lot about this topic of short-term rental consolidation, plus hotels breaking into the STR space, which is not a new thing. We saw a big kind of flux or shift during COVID, obviously, but there's a couple pieces of news I think we wanted to cover before we get into the topic. So you guys ready to jump into our top stories today?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Start with
All right.
Kayak is pulling out of launching their own hotel brand. They had a partnership with Lifehouse, and they were planning on dozens or more hotels branded Kayak, operated and run by Lifehouse and Lifehouse's software. But it seems like that experiment has failed, and Kayak, after opening just 3 hotels, 1 in Miami and then 2 in Mexico, are shutting it down. So bad news for Kayak lovers and Lifehouse lovers.
The hotel in Miami is really nice. And it was another hotel before that. So I hope that the actual building, like the space is beautiful and the restaurant there is lovely. So I'm not totally
It's
surprised. It's like obviously ops heavy. So
Yeah, Lifehouse is retaining that management contract, so they'll still
okay.
operate it. It'll just rebrand.
Why, or not Brandy? Sorry, Michael. Why do you think they're pulling out? Because this was like pretty exciting news during. I think they launched that first hotel in Miami, being like 2020, 2021. So it was exciting. I remember we talked about it.
Yeah, I mean it. Everything comes down to cost, right? So they must not be doing it profitably or getting the uptick they were expecting by trading on the kayak brand. It is totally surprising to me if kayak has all these members, all these guests that visit, how they can't drive, their own inventory. Um, that's interesting. So
Yeah,
every decision typically comes down to a financial one.
preach. I can relate. All right, next article, which was not a shock, I would say. We're seeing more vendors get into using ChatGPT for tools and other types of integrations with their current existing products and services. So Dove or however they pronounce it, uh, integrated ChatGPT for guest communication. Again, I'm not shocked by this. I think we're going to see more and more, especially in the communication sector or piece of tech within hospitality in general. We're going to see a lot more of this, especially now that ChatGPT and OpenAI have announced their integrations with this. So they have Slack, Asana, other companies that most companies use anyways that are going to be integrated with the ChatGPT 4. Not a shocker for me, but still kind of exciting. Hopefully, ChatGPT doesn't take over their guest comps and start ruining reservations. But that's just some tinfoil hat thinking right there. Uh,
Always the tinfoil hat wearer, Will.
hey, you never know when it's gonna happen.
Be prepared, right?
Yeah. And next article we got here, Brandy, go for it.
Yeah, Oyo's cut their IPOs in half, which is pretty crazy, going from 1.1 billion to it could be 400 to 600 million. But also, I don't think super shocking when you give all of the financial market information that's been going around the last couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting to see what they actually IPO at. They said in November, but just kind of another. The article calls it like a red herring, and I think that's just that's correct. We'll kind of see how this affects the Indian stock market, and then also just the general IPOs that happen in the next year.
Well,
Totally agree.
And if you're Oyo going public right now, who are your comps?
Yeah, it's tough.
You've got Vacasa and Sonder, who are both down more than 90% since IPO. And then you've got WeWork, who, from their all-time highs is probably also down somewhere in the 75 to 90% range. So I wouldn't be buying Oyo if I'm
no,
but I do not give financial advice to anybody. This is my own
disclaimer.
Thought.
Yeah, and I think some people ask, like, why would they even do this? And the common answer is this is the only well to go back to. That you reach a certain size, and it's kind of this is the option that you have.
Agreed. And I just told you guys, I spent the whole day yesterday pretty much just watching the We Crashed not documentary, but TV show on Apple TV. And it definitely gave me some WeWork vibes. I was like, what did they say? I think was the unicorn stampede is now turning into a unicorn bloodbath. And I think we've seen that post IPO for a lot of companies, including, like Michael said, Vacasa.
They're just horses now because that unicorn has come off.
There's no horns on those bad boys. They are completely not mythical creatures. They're just people like you and me. They're just like us.
It's regular businesses.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, return money for investors. Awesome. Well, okay. So the big topic. I know we have a lot of opinions, and again, for the audience, gave a little bit of a spice level hint. Consolidation in the industry, plus, and I will say, coming from the hotel world, granted this was 2017, 18, and 19 where I was in it. I wasn't involved in during COVID times. So going in from like a hotel's perspective to the short-term rental world, you know, it's great to think you can like easily apply all these standards and operation experience. And I would say the big thing for me was the lack of tech in hotels to then the like amount of unlimited tech where you could really get creative with your tech stack in the short-term rental world. Sounded easier than probably most, but it's obviously not. And there's a lot of talk on like how hotels think they can just easily get into the vacation rental world and not have any issues. um, and then like there's a side of like consolidation and how it's fragmented and all this other stuff. So Brandy, I actually want you to kick us off. I want the audience to hear you come in swinging.
Yeah, at least it wasn't how it was last night. I was on a real tear yesterday. But I think that what I'm just a little annoyed with, bored with over is this attitude or narrative that it's a zero sum game, it's a winner take all, it's hotels versus STR, and like at the end only one person is going to remain. And I just think that is, I mean, that's just kind of boring, that and also not in touch with reality. And you're going to see hotels and STRs borrow things from each other that they want to try that might work in their industries, and you're going to keep seeing the middle get very blurry. But I think that it's really just a reorganization of the accommodations industry. These labels that we have on here are just kind of like generic definitions. So the customer demands and expectations have been evolving and the product has been evolving. And now, kind of as an accommodation industry in general, we have to decide, okay, like what are these terms? Like what are our definitions? We kind of have to rewrite the rule book. That also goes hand in hand with regulation and kind of like the more government side of things, how your local municipality defines a hotel or an STR. And all of that takes time, but it's not like all of a sudden there's just not going to be any STRs or no hotels. Like that's just not, it just seems like a very silly narrative to keep pushing. And it's just, I feel like we're hearing that now. We've heard it over the last couple of years and it'll pop back up. And it just like, it doesn't really make any sense to me. And, STRs, we have the ability to adapt, I think, a lot faster than hotels, especially the bigger brands. And so we can try new things. We can fail, I think, a lot easier than, Marriott. If they're implementing a new system and it fails, like that could be catastrophic. Whereas, Romy does it, we can maybe pivot, right? So you have that that benefit. But then when hotels do go into the STR universe, they can do so at a scale that is pretty impressive. So you have, again, Marriott as the example with Homes and Villas starting their own platform and then introducing Marriott Apartments. But it's not like every single Marriott that is going to be built from here on out is going to be apartment style, or that they're going to retrofit all of their hotels to be apartments. Like this is just part of their growth plan to attract as many customers as possible. And so I think that the STRs can use technology, as Will, you were saying, to become more hotel-like more quickly, rather than the opposite of like hotels becoming more STR-like. Mm-hmm. So that's the beginning of my rant, and there's more, but I will open up the floor.
Thanks for attending your TED Talk. Just kidding.
Yeah, I've been in this space. It's probably easier to say going on a decade than like 8 years, but been in the space going on a decade, and consolidation has been the hot topic for that decade. It's pretty funny that consolidation is continuously the topic, but for a long time it was true. HomeAway bought 13 companies, Vacasa bought 1,300 companies, right? However many it was. But I think on the PM side, consolidation's done. In fact, we're going to have an unwinding of consolidation as Vacasa continues to struggle. There is no barrier to entry for a local market person to create a logo and a website and start becoming a short-term rental property manager in Destin, Florida. So I think that era of Vacasa buying up anybody and everybody, Sonder blitz scaling to oblivion, and then now retracting, I think that's over. I think what we've learned is property management is and always has been
He's getting choked up. Oh man, you all right?
just a little,
Yeah.
just a little something in my throat. It is and always has been a local business, and I think the people that do it well treat it like a local business. So for us, at least in my opinion, the biggest opportunity is the franchise model, where you can fly a national brand, you can get benefits of scale, but every aspect of your business, or 90% of your business, is handled locally, period. What the guys at Costago are doing, what iTrip's done, I think that's the model that I would be betting on in the future, because that's the model that we see in two different segments. We see that in hotel chains. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just copy what hotels have struggled to figure out for 70 years, but are now great businesses. And real estate agents, like you've got your Remaxes of the world, your Century 21s of the world, but that's not run out of a corporate office. It's run out of a hyper local, hyper expertise of the local market business. So in terms of consolidation on the property manager side, over, done with, as far as I'm concerned. I do think there's a lot of consolidation, on the tech side coming up. So
yeah,
we know there's a lot of people out there looking for tech to purchase, but there's just so many vendors out there and not enough VC capital to prop them up. So end of my tech talk.
Man, you're getting me all emotional. I was like, oh shoot, Michael.
No, man, my throat's just
no, it's all good. I'm curious on the side of two things. I think you're 100% right. The local model at a franchise level does seem to be the most successful. From my point of view, do we even need consolidation? Do we need to consolidate the short-term rental segment of hospitality? I personally would say no. I think it's a great segment that there are professional managers. I think we need to define a professional manager, because a lot of people think, like Brandy, you were saying earlier, we need to redefine some of these terms and phrases a little bit, because I know professional managers who only have one home. I know they're very professional. They have a brand around it. They have standards and cleaning and all this other stuff that goes beyond the typical shared space living or whatever type of hosting a lot of people think you do on Airbnb or other platforms. So I think, do we need to consolidate? I don't think so. It's not the end of the world. I think we're doing pretty damn good. Yes, there are horror stories out there of really bad scams and hosts and property managers out there, but they are very much the bad being spotlighted because it's bad. Like, no, there's not a lot of good stories always being showcased in media. We all know that. You check your
one of the arguments for hotels is standards and hospitality, right? You go work in a hotel, you might have gone to a hospitality school, you might have formal training. They probably put you through formal training. You work in short-term rentals, it's like, all right, go figure it out. Good luck. Be nice to people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know a single short-term rental operator who came from a hospitality school, at least in the US.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody.
I mean, not one person that started our company came from hospitality,
Nope.
so, and
not Sonder, not Lyric, not Vacasa, right? Cliff was a lawyer, and I don't know what Breon was doing, but it wasn't hospitality. So I think we can learn hospitality and we can learn standards. And that's where the benefit of a national brand comes into play. But consolidation within that, it's not going to be owned by the national brand. It's going to be owned and locally operated, but fit criteria, fit standards, fit hospitality levels of a national brand.
Yeah, I think that people just forget that this is an operations heavy business. Like when all of these rounds were being raised over the last, 10 years, everything was pitched as like this tech company. And at least, this is, definitely more towards, urban PMs, but it is a real estate heavy, operations heavy business where you have to use tech, like using technology does not make you a technology company, And so I think that there is a little bit more of like return to reality of, to your point, like everything has to be hyper local, especially if you're in a more rural destination or things are more geographically spread out. Like just the nature of organizing all of that, are you able to really know the ins and outs that like at 3 o'clock it's not normal rush hour, but actually if you go in between these two places you're going to be stuck in traffic for 2 hours? Like if your headquarters are across the country, you might not know that, and those little details start to pile up, and that's where you start to see costs inflate and things like that. And you're not in touch with what's actually going on in the inner workings of your business.
For sure. I was recently on an episode with Zach Boozacruz, who is in Hospitality FM with his show called Behind the Stays. He recently interviewed the founder of Wander. And, the conversation kind of came up with him and I on the sense of, is there going to be a Marriott of the vacation rental world? Is there going to be a Hyatt? Is there going to be a Hilton? And, as we've been talking about like this whole everyone's trying to make this like short-term rentals versus hotel argument, which is real. Like Brandy, I am 100% on board with you in the sense of it's a really annoying argument because, again, coming from both worlds, I don't think it should be a versus. It should be a lodging, and short-term rentals for the long time was considered alternative lodging, which I think that phrase in itself should always just be banished anyways now, due to the recent growth. But in the sense of like, is there going to be a Marriott? Is there going to be is Wander going to be the next consumer brand where loyalty and kind of like a Bonvoy membership or I guess program is created? And my answer to that question was kind of like, I don't know. I don't know how you would be able to do that due to the fact that Brandy Romy's properties, I'm sure, are owned by different investors and groups, just like single family homes are owned by different owners and all the above. So I don't think it's the easiest thing to bring up in the sense of scale and consolidation and one flag versus this is an industry that's very much so due to the amount of ownership behind the buildings themselves, whether it's again urban or vacation, that is going to be much harder in order to kind of compare a short-term rental brand to become like a Marriott or a Hilton. So I don't know what your guys' thoughts
Yeah.
are on all that.
Well, the other component is the educating of the customer, because we run into that a lot. And I'm sure other urban PMs do too, where like someone will book one of our properties on Expedia, for example, and it, looks like a hotel. It's listed as an apart hotel, which like, I don't even know if people pay attention to that. And then they come in and they're like, it's not a hotel. Like their expectation is that it is a building in the city and it is a hotel. And so there also has to be, and I don't really know like right now what the best way to go about educating the guests. I think it is really through experience and getting them into these properties more often where, you have some of the benefits of having a hotel, and then also it's a little bit, you got a cheaper stay for a bigger, location because you're not getting the daily cleaning and there isn't like, there aren't like 9 people at the front desk and things like that. And they, some articles have been talking about the 3 C's of hospitality. And one of them that I think is really interesting is like the concierge component, because one of the reasons why the models for urban STR operators work is because you can do so with a much more reduced staff than a hotel has, because a hotel is really focusing on all these minute components of hospitality, which I think is great, but it's also like the overhead that comes with that is extreme. So I don't really know how much more those can be blended without cost becoming a really big problem. And payroll is obviously the thing that you're the most sensitive to. But it would be, I mean, Marriott, we keep going back to it because it's just the easiest example. With their Marriott apartments, they can maybe provide all of those concierge hotel amenities because they just have that plugged in. And, so I think that's that space, kind of the Marriotts of the world creating their own apartment, style buildings. That's going to be more prevalent, I would say, rather than like urban STR operators going full hotel.
For sure.
I'll take the contrarian stance that there will be brands, household recognizable brands, which I would argue there aren't any today. It'll just take time. And I think the franchise model will get there eventually. Will, to your point, it's harder for short-term rentals to do that because they have different owners. Marriott, of their 8,000 hotels, they own 80.
Yeah.
So they have lots and lots of different owners as well. It's not any different. It's just at a different scale. What I think the difference is that behind Marriott, they have institutional investors. So of those 7,700 properties that they don't own, they have maybe 5 or 6 ownership groups that own half of the rest. So as institutional capital starts to come into short-term rentals, they'll start picking their ponies, and those ponies are going to be the ones that really start to win. So I do think the age, to put it all on a nice bow, the age of consolidation for PMs is over, but the age of franchises is kind of upon us. And I'm quite surprised that we haven't seen kind of a rush towards that model, to be honest. Because, I mean, what Steve Schwab and Ryan Dame have done at Casago over the past 5 years is wild. And for them not to really have a whole lot of competition. I know there's a couple of people starting to franchise their concepts, but it's early days on that front. So I love it. I'm a big fan. I think that's the future. If you want to run a very well tight-shipped machine, then look to franchise it.
Yeah, I think one kind of point we touched on just briefly, though, is the consolidation in the tech side of, the VR tech side of things. And I always, in our industry in the United States, we own, and North America, you see all of our tech our tech providers. And then if you like zoom back out and you look at all of the options that there are global, I mean, it's just kind of like a mess. There's so much going on. And so I think, Michael, to your point, like that's where we're going to see all the consolidation, especially as like the VC money kind of dries up. And a lot of these products offer relatively the same thing with minor differences here and there. I think that's where, especially in the next like 2 or 3 years, that's where the biggest changes are going to happen. And I hope that means that we start to get really solid products, and that you're not picking one that's just like the best of the things you can tolerate, but you're actually getting something that really solves all of your needs. So that's my goal, or my hope for that consolidation.
Do we hear another PMS shift for Randy?
No, no. Absolutely not. Never.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers, but Oracle just dominates
exactly
hotels, right? So they probably have, and I'm making this up, somebody can fact check me, they probably have 50% of the market. All of the major brands are using the top 2 or 3 PMSs in hotels. And then there's the long tail of 200 behind them. But, if you're opening a city center Marriott, you're definitely going to be using this one. So I agree. I think, and we know there's private equity groups out there on the hunt. So if you have a profitable business, that's going to be easier to sell than a not profitable business, of course. But also, if you have great tech that can fold into one of your competitors or be synergistic with someone else, we saw that Track acquisition of Rented makes total sense So let's see what else comes this year.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And I like how earlier, Michael, you mentioned ponies instead of unicorns. So good shift from that. Before we wrap today's episode, we always love to give a fun fact of the week for our friends who listen live, who listen on the replays. All of you who tune into the show, we greatly appreciate it. So this fact, again, is from AirDNA, fun fact of the week. This fact is occupancy levels continue to decline through the U.S. for short-term rentals. In February, occupancy declined 1.8% year over year to 55.8%, but is still up 2.3% versus 2019. So a little bit of decline, but we're still in the strong. Occupancy levels fell in 31 of the 50 largest short-term rental markets. Phoenix, Scottsdale, although the third highest demand growth market with a growth rate of 60.3% year over year, had the largest drop in occupancy at 13.6% year over year. So Phoenix / Scottsdale has been a top growth market in the past year, and undoubtedly additional supply was motivated to become available as host prepared for the Super Bowl to take advantage of that big event of travelers. So fun fact of the week. I hope you guys enjoy your own fun facts by getting AirDNA for yourself and using our code GMH20. We'll make sure the link is in the show notes. And we greatly appreciate the AirDNA team for always supplying those fun facts of the week. Just a good one to wrap up the episode with. You guys have anything you're excited for this week coming up? Anything popping, maybe a spice level 3 or 4 for you guys?
Yeah, we're doing a launch party for the new brand. So we don't really like take a moment to celebrate the wins that often. So it'll be fun to get dressed up and, celebrate a new brand. So pretty pumped.
We look forward to seeing the pictures of it Monday.
Yeah, seriously. And show up on time. Don't be a little hungover. On Monday we need you.
Have I ever? Come on now.
Come on. No, it's good. I'm excited for that. I wish we could be there. And then, guys, what's the next thing we get to do together in person? Do we want to tell everybody what we're going to be in May?
Oh my gosh!
No?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we get to go to Barcelona together.
How's your Spanish?
I know that I'm going to be leading the charge.
Yeah. Mi amo Guillermo. Como te llamas? That's Baño.
Oh,
that's all I know. It's gonna be rough. My month in Mexico last year did me good at the end of the trip when I finally picked up some stuff, but I completely forgot it. So,
well, I have one of our coworkers is from Nicaragua, and she's helping me do interview questions in Spanish, so we can bring those out.
There we go. That'll be great for the live broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Awesome. Well, we're excited. We'll be at Scale Rentals in Barcelona in May. We'll shoot out more information to all of our followers and listeners. And then, of course, as always, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Make sure you share with your friends. Tell your mom how great this show is. I know she wants to hear it as well. So thank you guys so much. And we'll see you all again next week.